Okay, everybody, let's check it out in the words of Rob Schmitt. Okay, welcome to Rob Schmitt Tonight. I'm Bob Brooks. Rob has the night off. Thank you so much for tuning in. So I want to start tonight off by talking more about why the fraud in Minnesota and now other states, as I'm about to tell you, went on for so long and was so widespread. Well, I mean, there's actually a lot of reasons, like one being pure stupidity. I mean, their governor is Tampon Tim Waltz, so that should be the most obvious. But at the center of all of this, when you sit down, really think about it, it's woke ideology. That's what led us to this point. And I know it's cliche to say, but go woke, go broke. And that's really what led to this. So let it be a warning sign to everyone. We're talking about unprecedented fraud and ripping off Americans from all over the country because their state gets in ballpark roughly $20 billion plus a year from the federal government. So we were all ripped off by what happened because liberals in Minnesota didn't want to offend anyone. Now, I'm going to guess that many of you are wondering why it took years for anyone to notice this and why money being stolen, it grew bigger and bigger each year. Well, this is why. If anyone in Minnesota tried to speak up about it, they were called racist. And we know the word racist has been weaponized by the left, and the worst thing in the world for the woke movement is being labeled as a racist, so no one dared speak up. That is what happened, and here's the proof. According to local outlets, there were employees within their state government that became skeptical. Some of them worked in the Minnesota Department of Education. And according to the local NBC affiliate in Minneapolis, all the way back in 2021, mind you, so people knew, there was an ongoing legal fight with the Minnesota Department of Education, which was attempting to withhold reimbursement payments and prevent new mill sites from forming in the midst of suspected fraud. Now, this is about their Feeding Our Future program that was running, which the money was for, like it says, feeding hungry kids. The criminals, they were claiming to feed kids that never even existed, and then they went ahead and took the payouts from the state. So it was pretty simple, right? Almost too simple for someone not to get caught sooner, don't you think? So someone there knew something was wrong, and you know what happened? Whoever was trying to blow the whistle, they were called a racist by certain elected officials. According to the report, one of them being Minneapolis City Council member Jamal Osman, who was born in Somalia. Osman, according to prosecutors, said this when talking about it, quote, "I'm one of those people that push back and call it what it is, which is racist tactics." Okay, meanwhile, it looks like Osman's wife, she was in on it. Her name is Ilo Amba, however you pronounce it. It's reported public records show Amba's nonprofit, Urban Advantage Services, received $400,060 in reimbursements between February and November 2021, claiming to serve meals out of a small downtown office. And then what happened, the Minnesota Attorney General's office later shut it down, calling it a fraudulent shell company. Mind you, this guy is on their city council. It's coming to our country, you take power, you start stealing our money, then if anyone says anything, here comes the boogeyman. You're a racist, and your life is ruined if you let them do that to you. And apparently nothing has been learned by this. After all these revelations, their governor, Tampon Tim, is telling everyone that he's going to bring more Somalis into his state. He's doubling down on this now.
We're going to defend our neighbors, and we're going to advocate things that make a difference. So instead of demonizing our Somali community, we're going to do more to welcome more in and welcome people in.
Okay? And he's also blaming President Trump for it.
Donald Trump brought this to the attention like this is something brand new. This is not brand new, and it's been being worked on. But he made it white hot and very dangerous.
No, Governor Walz, it's white hot because $1 billion of taxpayer money was stolen for years under your watch, and people knew about it and nothing was done. That is why this is white hot. In fact, here's the U.S. Attorney for Minnesota on that very topic.
It appears that the people at the highest levels of responsibility in the government of the state of Minnesota looked the other way.
How did that happen? Why did that happen? Well, as already said, it's woke. It's the Democrat way. Why on earth would you turn a blind eye to any of this? So big, so massive. Well, the only reason I can come up with is because to remain politically correct and not to offend anyone and make it seem like open borders and unchecked immigration and everybody is our friend and big government handouts, that it's all working, right? They had to let this happen. Liberals in Minnesota had to, or else their whole party platform, it comes crashing down. And that is where this is going. It's a cover-up. You heard the AG. They all knew. How could you not? $1 billion in welfare money doesn't go missing without someone or most of them knowing. Come on now. And here, I'll share some more fraud. Officials are looking at this exact same thing happening over in the state of Maine now. One of their state senators, Matt Harrington, he posted this to Facebook this week. Credible allegations of Somalia-linked welfare fraud need to be investigated now by the Governor Mills administration. So there was a big article about this in the Maine Wire, that publication, and this is what the senator is talking about, okay? It involves this guy. He's a Somali American. His name is Abdallah Ali. This is what they write. Quote, he started a nonprofit to help fellow immigrants, started several businesses, including a multi-million-dollar Maine Care-funded migrant services agency. And even according to an interview that this guy gave with Kenyan media, he managed to raise money in the United States to buy weapons, munitions, and supplies for a paramilitary force he had hoped to lead as president of Jubaland, Somalia, wherever the heck that is. Okay. So the senator thinks that maybe this guy ripped off the Maine Medicare program and then sent the money to fund guerrilla-style freedom fighters in Somalia. So what are we even talking about anymore? Something tells me this isn't going to stop with Minnesota and Maine. And yes, woke liberal BS is what led us to this point. When you think long enough about it and you talk it through like we do tonight and you sit down and you think and put it together, that is exactly what it all boils down to. Okay, let's talk about it with someone who knows a lot about this. Our Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, Scott Turner. Secretary, it's a pleasure. Thanks for coming on tonight.
Hey, thank you, Bob. Great to be with you.
Absolutely. Great to see you again. Let's talk about it here. In Minnesota, I want to point this out. As we know, the Somali fraud rings kind of got their hands in many different pots, right? This past September, 8 people, they were federally charged in a Minnesota housing stabilization fraud scheme. Their names on the screen. You can see them right there. They're accused of scamming a Medicaid program aimed at helping seniors and people with disabilities find stable housing. Instead, they used a shell company to submit fraudulent and inflated bills, only providing a fraction of the services that they claim to have provided. The program started at $2.6 million cost annually, and then over the next 4 years, it ballooned up to $302 million. So, Mr. Secretary, talk about it. Are you investigating any of this fraud as well?
Well, you know, Bob, I'm so glad that you've brought this to light. All of the fraud and the waste and the abuse that went on during the Biden administration, and this is just one case of the abuse. And I know at HUD, we have cut out any funding to any Somalis in our TPS program, any temporary protected status. HUD funding is cut off to them. And this is just one case of so much. But as you know, we have another investigation going on right now in the city of Boston.
And I know that's work that is going to be ongoing, going to take some time. I know people, they always want results right now, but I know you'll be busy with that. I want to switch gears. I'm going to talk about the agency, you guys releasing the worst case housing needs report. Pretty big. In it, you state the foreign-born population, it has increased by more than 6 million under Joe Biden. Currently at the highest level in American history. We're also seeing some of the consequences in every aspect of American life, specifically affordability. That may be the biggest. In the report, it finds that immigration accounts for up to 100% of the housing demand growth in New York and California, 2/3 of the rental demand growth nationwide. The border has caused so many problems for American, Mr. Secretary. What can be done now to try and right the ship on that?
Well, thank you, Bob, for bringing that up. You know, President Trump, under his leadership, and Secretary Noem and DHS and Mr. Holman and others have made sure that our border is secure. During the Biden administration, they had weak policies, in particular when it came to immigration and open borders. Over 12 million people came across our borders unchecked, unfettered, checked, and you see what happens as it pertains to housing costs, housing affordability, because of illegal immigration, because of millions of illegal aliens coming across our border. Housing supply is tight, housing affordability is skyrocketed, and so now having our fiscal house in order, having our border secure at HUD, we're working intentionally and feverishly every single day to make sure that only American citizens are prioritized as it pertains to HUD-funded housing. We signed an MOU with DHS and Secretary Nome, a data sharing agreement to make sure that every person living inside of HUD-funded housing is a legal citizen of America. We also stopped illegal aliens for receiving FHA-backed mortgages. And so with these plans in action, we're making sure that the American people and American people only are prioritized to live in HUD-funded housing.
Well, that's great to hear. A breath of fresh air, actually, to hear, people within the Trump administration like yourself, Secretary, putting Americans first. Big deal. Another real quick thing I want to get to. A letter that you sent, your agency, to the Boston Mayor Wu, announcing an investigation into their city's discriminatory housing practices. Writing this, the Boston Housing Strategy 2025 announced that at least 65% of opportunities to buy homes through the City of Boston initiatives should go to the BIPOC. All right, that's an acronym for the Black, Indigenous, People of Color, those households. The policy is clear, though. Financial housing assistance is not just for all low-income persons, but instead particularly for those residents. So what can you explain about that and what's going on in Boston?
Yeah, so Bob, they put race above reality. They put race above merit and need, using the Fair Housing Act as a weapon to promote discriminatory housing policies. And at HUD, our responsibility is to uphold the Fair Housing Act, to uphold the law, and to enforce the law. And that's exactly why you see us launching this investigation. And you alluded to, in the city's own words, they say, we will integrate racial equity at every layer of city government. What that tells us right there, it's not about need, it's not about following the law, but it's about DEI. And at HUD, DEI is dead, it's over. And the president, with his leadership, this administration, we want to uphold the law. We want to protect the civil rights of every American. We are about equal rights, but not extra rights. And that's what you see going on in Boston.
Yeah, they wanted to advance that DEI agenda instead of just having a fair playing field for all of us, for all Americans, regardless of who you are. It's good to hear. Secretary Scott Turner, sir, good to see you. Thanks for coming on.
Great. Thank you, Bob.
Okay, we're going to continue the conversation now. Dr. Carol Swain, author of Adversity of Diversity. She joins us now. Doc, it's a pleasure to have you on. Want to get your thoughts on everything the fraud we're seeing in Minneapolis. As I pointed out tonight, if anyone tried to speak up, they were deemed a racist there in Minnesota. I also want to bring up Governor Tim Walz. He did a little press conference not too long ago. Somebody asked him about Somali, their community, taking ownership and oversight for what has happened here. I want to play that.
Look, it's not law-abiding citizens. If that were the case, there's a lot of white men should be holding a lot of white men accountable for the crimes that they have committed. I think it's asking us then, for every crime, which of course the majority being committed by white men, asking us to do more about that. I think it's crime in general. And I think the biggest thing on this is just making sure that we're educating the population.
So, Doc, I've heard Tim Walz now blame President Trump and blame white men for something like this happening under his watch, $1 billion wasted here. What are your thoughts?
Well, he's the only white man that should be blamed because he's the one that's in charge of the state of Minnesota. So he should have been more careful about what took place under his watch. And the blame game, the Marxists, and I would say that the Democratic Party has been totally taken over by people steeped in the Marxist agenda. And it's all about taking down America. And they don't care what group does it. They don't care if it's foreigners. They don't care if it's leftist Americans. All they care about is the destruction of America. And whites always get blamed. According to the Marxists, only white people can be racist. So as a black person, I can say anything I want. I can't be racist. But in the case of this theft that took place by the Somalian community, I would imagine that there are other communities around the country in blue cities where this is taking place. This is just the tip of the iceberg. They need to be held accountable. And during the Trump administration, hopefully they can get some successful prosecutions that will not be nullified by juries or liberal judges.
Yeah, Dr. Swain, it's exactly what I said in the opening monologue. I have a feeling we're all going to find out this went way beyond just the two states that I mentioned here. So you're saying it's right in my notes for you. I had, what is it with the left-leaning states and their leaders? I have corruption, Marxism, communism. You see what I'm getting at here? That's exactly what you're talking about. So we're on the same page, right?
I mean, it's the reality, and they're very open about their playbook. They don't hide what they're doing. And with racial and ethnic minorities, and we know that the time has long gone when we brought foreigners into the country and assimilated them to our American ways, and that they came to love the country. Those who come the legal way are people that really want to be here. They appreciate America, but the ones that we have brought in, a lot of them, they hate America. They're clear about it. And I would say that many of them, at least the Somalians, some of the Muslims, were brought here by Barack Obama. And we know that his agenda was never an agenda that benefited the American people, not the Black community. He empowered the LGBTQ community. But when you actually look at what he did for Black America or for working class Americans, I don't think there's a lot that he did that actually benefited people.
No,
and
I
it's
think,
certainly we know that it wasn't Obamacare that benefited the American people. It ruined our healthcare system.
It certainly did, and that's getting worse. Also want to mention here, we don't have time to talk about it, the executive director of Black Lives Matter, their movement in Oklahoma. I'm sure you heard about this. She's accused of embezzling $3.5 million for a bunch of different things. Bunch of ships, retail shopping. It's a big mess. Another organization rooted in Marxism, exactly on par with what we were talking about. Dr. Carol Swain, it's a pleasure to see you. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Okay, coming up, we're going to talk about someone President Trump calls a patriot who wanted fair and free elections. Her name is Tina Peters, a former Colorado elections clerk who has been sentenced to 9 years in jail after Democrats went after her. We're going to have the latest on her case and a bunch of updates like on Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Yeah, you remember him? All right, stick with us.
I was tired of being exhausted at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and constantly suffering from brain fog.
Toxic EMF radiation is coming from your cell phone and smart devices and being absorbed by your body.
We don't see EMFs. It's out of sight, out of mind.
That's why people around the world are choosing Bodywell. Bodywell's technology holds a harmonic pattern that helps your body respond better to EMF exposure, reducing EMF radiation absorption up to 80%. Just peel, stick, and protect.
This little device changed everything.
Bodywell's BioCard protects your entire body. Simply place it in your pocket.
I didn't believe in EMF protection until I actually felt the difference.
I sleep much better, more like a baby.
I mean, my kids are my world, and I want to do everything I can to protect them and give them a better life.
Order your BioCard today, and for a limited time, get a BioChip, a $99 value for free. Go to bodywell.com. That's bodywell.com.
Hello, everyone. It's President Donald J. Trump, and it's Trump time. Check out this red beauty. It's one of my new watches. Wear it proudly on your wrist, and everyone will know exactly what it's for, who it represents. It's really going to be something special. It's for your favorite president. Get your watch today at gettrumpwatches.com. These make a great gift. It's Trump time.
Okay, welcome back in. I'm Bob Brooks, filling in for Rob this evening. Flashback to 2024. A former Mesa County elections clerk in Colorado named Tina Peters is convicted on state charges related to her role in a 2021 election security breach. And she was sentenced to 9 years behind bars. Seems pretty harsh. Well, fast forward to this week, and President Trump, he writes this on Truth Social. Democrats have been relentless in their targeting of Tina Peters. Tina is sitting in a Colorado prison for the crime of demanding honest elections. Adding, I am granting Tina a full pardon for her attempts to expose voter fraud in the rigged 2020 presidential election. Here's the catch, though. Tina Peters was convicted on state charges, and many argue that presidential pardons are only useful for federal convictions, not ones on the state level. Only the governor can issue a pardon or grant clemency for state convictions. So the governor of Colorado, might know him, it is this guy, Democrat Jared Polis. You remember him?
Feliz Navidad. Feliz Navidad. Feliz Navidad, prospero año y felicidad.
Well, that's embarrassing. What a freak. So how do you think he responded to President Trump's pardon of Tina Peters? Well, this is it. Here's how. No president has jurisdiction over state law nor the power to pardon a person for state convictions. This is a matter for the courts to decide, and we will abide by court orders. Also, Colorado's Democrat Attorney General Phil Weiser, he flat out says they're not going to release Tina Peters after President Trump's pardon.
Will President Trump's pardon actually free Tina Peters?
No. This is a lawless act. It's an act of intimidation. It has no basis in American law.
Let's talk about it here to weigh in. Legal and political strategist Katie Zacharia, along with CPAC Chairman Matt Schlapp. Pleasure to see you both here on Friday evening. Matt, before we get into it, I want to point out some more things with this. This is the same state, as you remember, wanted to throw President Trump off the ballot in the name of protecting democracy. That was led by their Secretary of State, Jenna Griswold. Well, Tina Peters' attorney, Peter Tickton, spoke to the local NBC affiliate. He said there's a good chance that Governor Polis and the Secretary of State Griswold, they may be arrested. Okay, Matt, what's going to happen with Tina?
Well, I think the law here is clear. The president has the right to pardon and commute federal sentences, but not state sentences. But here's the great irony, Bob. This is all over insecure voting, people voting more than one time, illegal people voting in a state that, guess it won't surprise you, went to almost all mail-in ballots in Colorado. And as soon as they went to, focusing on mail-in ballots, they lost election security, and the Republicans haven't won statewide since then. The reason why the Democrats love vote by mail is that it's inherently insecure. Tina Peters was a real heroic voice pointing out the insecurity of this type of voting. And she's a political prisoner in Colorado.
She is. 9 years, and she wanted fair and free elections, transparency. Katie, what's your take?
It's very similar to Matt Schlapp, and also it's fun to watch that video you showed and juxtapose this with the Democrats' protection of Abrego Garcia, right? It's like, let's put Tina Peters in prison for wanting to expose election fraud, and then release Abrego Garcia, who has viable charges against him and is in the country illegally. Look, Tina Peters does have an uphill battle. This is unprecedented for a president to do a pardon on state charges. The best argument forward for her would be to try to change venue and get this into federal court, arguing that this is inherently based on federal election irregularities. This was a presidential election or congressional elections thereof, and tried to bifurcate the case on state versus federal. There has been this tradition. Mark Meadows did this in Arizona. The argument could be made in Colorado. We'll see what happens. But as for now, I think it's going to be a tough climb unless the attorney general and governor want to do something for her.
Bring up great points. Look what the left is championing: a Kilmar Abrego Garcia gang member, wife beater, human smuggler, and threw in prison a woman trying to get transparency for our elections. I want to move on to this, though. Matt, Charlie Kirk's alleged assassin, Tyler Robinson, he appeared in court yesterday for his first in-person appearance. So you watch him on camera, right? And we see him kind of grinning, giggling. The man accused of the heinous crime we all had to witness on television here. Matt, talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, makes your blood run cold. To see these young people, violent young people, the assassination of Charlie Kirk, the shootings in these schools and in these churches. There's a real virus in this country that's been let loose, and it's radicalized a lot of young people into this woke, violent behavior. And this young person, I don't think he understands, maybe he does, the evil he perpetrated, that he's not a star, he's not famous. He's infamous. He's evil. He did something absolutely horrendous to another human being. And he's going to have to pay the consequences of it. I hope he pays the consequences of it fully in our legal system, but we're put on this earth to do good things, and the consequences of his actions, I can't even imagine. What a horrible human being.
Yeah, Matt, and I agree that there is a sickness with the young people and whatever is going on in their heads here. And part of it, as we know, has been trans, Katie, and the trans movement. And we know that his tie choice in court, right? They were pink, blue, and white, the same colors as the trans flags. We know Robinson, he had a trans lover at the time he allegedly assassinated Charlie. Do you read anything into that?
Well, it's difficult to make that kind of assumption. Maybe this is a statement he's trying to make, a subtle statement. I think it's pretty provocative, if so, given that he's in trial for his assassination of Charlie Kirk and he's still making the statement. This guy, though, is brazen, and given what he did, given what he wrote on the ammunition and kind of this path he'd led, I wouldn't put it past him. He's smiling in court. He has this kind of light presence, which is just so difficult to swallow and to look at. He doesn't understand, I don't think, how serious this is. Maybe he won't until hopefully execution. But to be honest, Bob, I don't know where he's going with that tie. Yeah,
as Matt said, hard to say what he actually realizes, what he does or doesn't. Does he realize how sick he is? It's all kind of scary and sadistic, and he's going to get his day in court. Katie, Matt, good to see you both.
Thank you.
Okay, coming up next, President Trump, he honors the legendary Miracle on Ice U.S. men's hockey team today. Going to have their captain on, captain of the team, Mike Eruzione, next. Stick with us.
Sono Bello helped me get back my sparkle this season.
This year, look amazing in every holiday photo with Sono Bello, America's #1 cosmetic surgery specialist.
Before I would hide in the back of photographs, I didn't expect the results to be this good. I'm so happy about it.
This holiday, save 50% on the area you're most excited to change. Tummy, waist, arms, thighs, you choose.
I got lipo done on my stomach and also on my arms as well. Best decision ever.
Sono Bello permanently removes stubborn fat, tightens and tones skin, all in just one visit with less downtime.
All the fat was gone.
When I saw myself in the dress, I knew I was about to live my best life.
Call 800-665-0288 to save 50% on your first area this holiday. Appointments are filling fast.
Run, do it. Because if you can feel half of what I feel, totally worth it.
This is a limited time offer. Save 50% on your first area. Call Sono Bello today.
Hurry in for huge savings going on now at Motorhome Specialist. Now with 2 locations. Shop and save on over 1,000 motorhomes, starting at $69,995. Only at Motorhome Specialist, the #1 motorhome dealer in the world.
You might take something for your heart. You might get support for your joints, or even use something for your digestion. So why wouldn't you take something for the most important part of you? Your brain. People all over the country take Prevagen for their brain. In fact, Prevagen has been the #1 selling brain supplement nationwide for over 10 years. The most important supplement for the most important part of you. Try Prevagen for your brain today.
Meet Andrew from the Zebra. Andrew lives and breathes insurance. Andrew stays up all night watching the Zebra find people's savings. You might think nobody could love insurance as much as Andrew, but at the Zebra, everybody's really into savings. The Zebra monitors your insurance and informs you of savings the moment we find it, so you never have to second-guess your policy or your price. Nobody does insurance like the Zebra. Find out how much you can save today.
You know the holidays are meant to be about family, laughter, and taking things slow. But when you're in pain, it's hard to enjoy any of it. I know because my back has made life difficult. But that's why I love the Signal Relief Patch. It's helped me enjoy the holidays again. Join the thousands who have experienced relief and get 30% off your Signal Relief Patch today. I've given this patch as a gift to friends, family, and even strangers I've seen in pain.
Signal Relief has truly given me my happiness back.
The Signal Relief Patch puts pain on the back burner.
The Signal Relief Patch has been life-changing.
This is too good to be true. It's too easy.
In a recent study, over 85% of people felt relief, and it comes with a money-back guarantee. This patch was a game changer for me, and it can be for you too. Trust me, the patch works.
This was an amazing event. Pretty big, I mean, I don't know. There were some other upsets in the world. I haven't noticed them getting any of these, right? They're the only ones. That's great. We don't use auto pens here.
I think he's right. It was a huge event. President Trump honoring the legendary Miracle on Ice U.S. men's hockey team that famously defeated the Soviet Union in the 1980 Winter Olympics, signing legislation awarding all the players with congressional gold medals commemorating the 45th anniversary of their comeback and that victory. For those who aren't familiar with the Miracle on Ice, in the first game of the medal round at the Winter Olympics in Lake Placid in New York on February 22nd, 1980, Team USA, full of a bunch of college kids and amateurs, they were perceived as major underdogs to the international powerhouse, the Soviets, on paper. It was the Americans who were more scrappy and hungrier, eventually defeating the Soviet Union by a final score of 4-3. And then just 2 days later, Team USA would go on to win the gold medal that year, defeating Finland by a final score of 4-2. Captain Mike Eruzione of the gold 1980 Miracle on Ice hockey team. He also scored the go-ahead game-winning goal in the third period of that game. He gifted President Trump a replica hat of the Miracle on Ice, the ones that they wore during the opening ceremonies in Lake Placid. Some pretty funny stuff, some cool stuff there to see the president in those hats. Joining us now, Mike Eruzione, captain of the team. Mike, it's a pleasure.
Thank you very much. It was a special day for me and my teammates.
I'm sure it was. Talk about it. What was it like? It just happened. You just got out of the White House not too long ago.
Yeah, it was incredible. I've always said the greatest honor you can have as an athlete is to represent your country, but then put a USA jersey on. And we had that opportunity at a time in our country where we were looking for something to feel good about. And along we come. And again, for the president to honor us this evening, I said that, the gold medal is one thing, but this is the frosting on the cake to have something like this to myself and the team receive.
Certainly is. Want to bring up another kind of fun moment the president had with your teammate Ken Morrow. I want to bring that up.
Tomorrow. An honor to meet you, Mr. President. Yeah. What a great win for our country. And if people don't remember, that's where the USA chant started in Lake Placid.
That's right.
Yeah.
I tried to take credit for that. You had to bring that up, didn't you?
He's got a great sense of humor, doesn't he?
He's, I've known President Trump for quite a few years. We played golf a few times together, and he does have a pretty good sense of humor. And that was a pretty good answer to Kenny Morrow.
Let me ask you this. I'm going to say the word communism, which you helped defeat with the Miracle on Ice. Communism in the United States today. When I say that and put it all into a sentence, what goes through your head?
Well, I guess it reminds me of what was going on in 1980, the threat of a Cold War. The Soviets were not very well respected or very well liked in this country. And I think as a country, we were kind of tired of all the BS that we were dealing with the Soviet Union. They invaded Afghanistan. There's a lot of political issues going on at the time. And, when I think of that, I guess I think back of that moment of what it was like. We didn't know it at the time, but we brought great joy to a country that was looking for something to feel good about. And I've said this many times, we could use a 1980 now. But I think, for my teammates and I, like I said, I can't thank the president enough for signing this bill to give us the ultimate honor you can give an American. This was more than a hockey game. And at the time, we didn't realize it. But 45 years later, when you see something like this happen for our team, it makes you realize how special that was and what a great honor it was for the president to do that for us.
Well, it's still one of the most inspiring stories our country and our history has. Real quick while I got you, the Winter Olympics, they're coming up next year. NHL players are going to be back in the game, as I'm sure you know. How's that going to impact it? How's it going to affect it?
Well, I'm rooting for them. I told some of the players that I know that are going to be on the team, do us a favor and win a gold medal, and people will leave us alone. I'm just excited about this year's team. I think clearly they're one of the favorites, and it's time. It's time to show the world where the best hockey players in the world live, and I think they live in our country, and hopefully we'll show that in Milan. Not only our men, our women as well.
Captain Mike Eruzione, sir, always a pleasure. Good to see you.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Okay, have a great weekend. All right, coming up, we're going to take it south to the city of Miami, Florida, which hasn't had a Democrat mayor in almost 30 years, but soon they will. It is that woman. How in the world did that happen? What is going on? More next.
Owning gold in your retirement portfolio provides significant tax benefits. And at Orion Metal Exchange, our clients get the advantage of a dedicated gold IRA department. And they'll continue to service you free of charge beyond your initial purchase. Get a free copy of the Gold IRA Advantage, a new report that outlines the big benefits of owning physical gold for retirement.
Go to OrionReports.com or call 888-343-5936.
Give the Omaha Steaks favorite gift package that includes bacon-wrapped filet mignon, chicken, burgers, franks, sides, and desserts for just $89.99. That's 65% off. Order now to get 4 free burgers. Visit omahasteaks.com/TV.
Israel, the birthplace of our faiths for Christians and Jews. That Christmas morning, wise men brought gifts from outside the Holy Land.
But in this year of war, this Holy Land and her people are living in fear, and many of the elderly are alone and suffering.
Like the wise men or wise women, would you open your heart and give a special holiday food box to someone here in Israel this Christmas, Hanukkah season?
Right now, the hardships in Israel are felt by everyone. People like Hannah, who can't buy food. That is where the fellowship comes in. That's where the fellowship is called. Baruch Hashem. To feed the hungry.
Happy Hanukkah.
Through the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, your special holiday gift of just $25 can answer their prayers this Hanukkah and Christmas season.
It's people like Chaya that you can touch.
Please call, scan, or go online now to help rush emergency food and healing to elderly Jews and their Christian neighbors struggling to rebuild their lives from the war.
You are a Christian. Those words of Isaiah, that the Spirit of the Lord is upon you. There we go. You're bringing hope. You're bringing tomorrow on the table to her and to so many others. What will happen? Amen. When tens of millions of Christians and millions of Jews together, we make this holy day season holy indeed.
Okay, welcome back in. Some Democrats, they pulled off an upset this week in South Florida. For the first time in almost 30 years, a Democrat has won the Miami mayoral race. Eileen Higgins defeated the Trump-endorsed Republican Emilio Gonzalez. She received 59% of the votes. Like Mamdani and other Democrats, Higgins ran on her campaign on affordability, a nationwide trend in recent races that has Democrats thinking maybe they found their advantage, that somehow affordability is President Trump's fault, which it's not. Actually, he had nothing to do with it. Got to try and fix it now. So I'm kind of surprised people are buying into it, or are they? Dr. Michael Savage of Savage Nation joins us now tonight. Doc, pleasure to see you.
You know, I did a podcast that released today exactly on this topic, which is, I'm so glad you asked me to comment on it. You may not agree with all of my opinions, but I mean, that's what makes the world go around. It was the cost of living. It was the deportations, to the best of my knowledge. Now, it was a small election, very small turnout, off season. That's what the, that's what our side is saying. But we can only keep our head in the sand so long until we start to see a pattern. This is the fourth election in a row that our side has lost. For whatever the reasons are, we have to understand something's happening in this country. Now, 50% of the population in Miami are Hispanic people. And unfortunately for the people in MAGA, and I'm one of them, in fact, my Borders Language Culture mantra created MAGA, deporting gardeners who committed no crimes other than being here illegally is not what should be going on in the country. Deporting a woman off a taco truck instead of the gangbangers is not very popular in the Hispanic community, and that's part of the big problem. So the deportations, Bob, I think, were a major factor in its upset victory, as well as the cost of living issues, which, of course, are a big problem across the country, no matter what the administration may want us to believe. That's my takeaway from it all, Bob.
Doc, I get that, and I can certainly, I worked in Miami for 3 years. I'd like to think I understand that community. The cost of living, what I'm having a hard time coming to grips with is how anyone would think that Democrats have any kind of credibility left after what they did for 4 years. Why is Trump getting tied in after only 10 months in office? You got 4 years with them. Very little was said about that, and now it's being pinned on the president.
Yeah, but the people don't want to think about the past. Trump ran as a businessman who was going to fix the economy, and people want to be taken care of immediately. They don't care about what's coming a year from now or 2 years from now. The tariffs are also hurting the average person at the supermarket. Coffee is very expensive. There's a big coffee drinking city, as you know, living in Miami with all the Cuban people.
Cafecito makes the world go round.
The coffee's a very big deal. So I put this up on, on my X feed and all of that, and people say, hey, I got to tell you something. Yeah, a bag of Kirkland coffee at my local Costco is now $20, was $7 before, same for other staples. And it says 2026 is not going to go well for GOP if the cost of living is not addressed and fast, said one of the people who commented on my X feed. So I'm not sure that we can keep dismissing it and saying it's Biden's fault, it's Biden's fault, it's Biden's fault. Give us some time. It's not selling, and I think Trump has to change course rapidly, which he's already done, which is why he went on the road the other day to sell the affordability story. I mean, he knows that he's in trouble, to be honest with you.
All right. Well, sometimes I think, and you mentioned low turnout, right, for Miami. Each election, especially these little ones, I believe had it been bigger in a city like Miami, a Republican probably does win, and we're not having this conversation. But there was another special election I want to bring up in Georgia. You know about this. They gained a House seat Tuesday in North Georgia, a district won by President Trump last year. So a Democrat tech executive, Eric Gissler, he flipped the Republican seat. He got just over 50%, 50.8.5 of that vote, according to the unofficial results. Also, another Republican loss in the state of Indiana, right, where Republicans, they rejected that congressional map here. So, I'll let
There's a pattern.
Yeah.
Bob, there's a pattern. I don't care how slim the majority is. You know, in politics, if you win by one vote, you win. That's all that matters. And so they're winning. Our side is losing 4 elections in a row. And unless the Trump administration comes to understand that the ship of state, of which he is the captain and admiral all combined, unless he comes to understand that the ship of state that he's steering is scraping against the icebergs, we're going to lose big time in the midterms if we've not lost them already. That's my analysis. Sorry to say.
I'll take it.
No,
it makes sense.
I hope I'm wrong.
Just
I hope me an old guy doesn't. No,
big time. I hope you're really wrong.
Old. You don't know what you're talking. No, I'm wrong. I don't know what I'm talking
on
about.
That thing. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I'm wrong about everything. I kind of doubt it. I've been studying politics for 30 years, and I don't like the trend at all. I really don't, Bob. And I think that we have to face the fact that the average person is hurting, and they want someone to fix it fast.
Yep.
And now you combine that with the life of the extravagant people on the Republican side who are showing off as often as they can, and people are resenting it. And that's part of the class warfare that's going on in this country. You know, I could go into it in detail, but I don't think it's important. The fact is there's also been no arrests for so many things. January 6th, no arrest.
Yeah.
Russian collusion hoax, no arrest. Biden auto pen, no arrest. 2020 election, Epstein, COVID, Benghazi.
I get it.
No arrests. And people are saying, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Why not?
All
they
great
want
points.
some action.
Hey, Doc, we got to run. Good convo. It's good.
Hasta la vista.
All right, man. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to this coming up, something appalling. After calling the D.C. National Guard attack an unfortunate accident, Benny Thompson, he does not apologize, says he only misspoke. That's on News from the Left. Stick with us.
You're saying you misspoke?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
He's breathing. Okay. Go again.
Nearly 5,000 people die from choking each year. That's frightening. I'm Dr. Ben Carson.
And I'm Arthur Lee. Well, there are ways to help prevent choking. Accidents do happen. That's why I invented the Life Pack.
Anyone can use this device, and it can save a life in seconds.
Just place, push, and pull. It's that simple. Please order one for your home, office, car, anywhere you eat.
Go to lifehack.net or call 877-543-3822.
I'm a martial artist, a skydiver, a pilot, and all of them require your feet to work. Get up in the morning, and it felt like I was standing on marbles on my heel. When I went into the Good Feet store, the fitting was personalized. It was all about me. You put in the arch supports, and your day becomes better, and the sun shines, the unicorns run by, and, it's a good life. I'm Randy, and that's my Good Feet story.
See for yourself with a free personalized arch support fitting at the Good Feet store.
These days, supporting the right causes matters more than ever. That's why I chose Patriot Mobile. They're not just a great mobile service provider, they're all about giving back. Every bill helps support causes we believe in: family, faith, and freedom. You get great nationwide coverage on all 3 main networks. Even better, you're doing it with an American company that stands up for us. It's time to make the switch, y'all. Let's support a wireless company that's got our back. Go to patriotmobile.com and make the switch today.
I was tired of being exhausted at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and constantly suffering from brain fog.
Toxic EMF radiation is coming from your cell phone and smart devices and being absorbed by your body.
We don't see EMFs. It's out of sight, out of mind.
That's why people around the world are choosing Bodywell. Bodywell's technology holds a harmonic pattern that helps your body respond better to EMF exposure, reducing EMF radiation absorption up to 80%. Just peel, stick, and protect.
This little device changed everything.
Bodywell's BioCard protects your entire body. Simply place it in your pocket.
I didn't believe in EMF protection until I actually felt the difference.
I sleep much better, more like a baby.
I mean, my kids are my world, and I want to do everything I can to protect them and give them a better life.
Order your BioCard today, and for a limited time, get a BioChip, a $99 value for free. Go to bodywell.com. That's bodywell.com.
I am a coach and an alum of Girls on the Run. Kids today carry a lot of stress, from school pressure to social isolation to overuse of devices. We create a space where girls can connect, build confidence, and learn skills like managing emotions, setting goals, and speaking up. Each child's experience is different, and families need support. I'm proud to be part of a comprehensive solution to youth mental health. Get involved today at EmpowerOurFutureCoalition.com.
The unfortunate accident that occurred with the National Guardsman being killed.
You think that was an unfortunate accident?
I mean,
it was a terrorist attack.
Wait. Look, I'll get it straight. Then you can
He shot our National Guardsman in the head.
It was an unfortunate situation.
Okay, time now for News from the Left. That was Mississippi Congressman Benny Thompson referring to the deadly ambush attack against 2 West Virginia National Guard members, ultimately killing Sarah Beckstrom and leaving Andrew Wolf in serious condition. He said it was an unfortunate accident and situation. He was pretty clear there. Thompson trying to save face now, making an appearance on CNN, who would never push back against him, claiming he misspoke and was trying to make an entirely separate point, which it really didn't seem that way. Take a look.
Do you believe it was an accident?
Oh, absolutely not.
You're saying you misspoke?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Don't you notice whenever a Democrat makes a mistake, it's never an apology. It's always, no, I misspoke. No, that's not what I said. It was clearly what he said there. I think that's obvious. Chris Kohls, he's a Newsmax contributor, joins us now. Chris, I'm sure you heard that when it happened yesterday. We were all kind of watching. Your thoughts?
No, absolutely. It's an unpleasant situation right here, right? Because normally I like to come on here, make a few jokes, But this is a pretty horrific thing to say. This wonderful woman, Sarah Beckstrom, lost her life, killed in cold blood by an Afghan national who was rubber stamped by the Biden administration. And here's a Democrat who's essentially trying to minimize what happened here. And look, I would love to give him the benefit of the doubt. I would love to sit here and say, yeah, you know what? Okay, he misspoke. I understand. Sometimes we don't exactly say what we mean. But this is a pattern with Democrats. They tend to minimize these sorts of things often. They did exactly the same thing in the case of Irina Zarutska. You remember that? Really, truly horrific incident. They tried to minimize that even. They called it like a far-right talking point or something like that. They were saying we were trying to capitalize on it. No, it was just an absolutely horrific murder, just like this one. And look, this is really damaging to Democrats, I think, because they're just not on the same page as ordinary Americans. And, you know, they're really not on the same page as us for many issues, but this one's easy. Yeah. This one's easy. Show a little sympathy. Even, you know, they're great at lying. Even if you don't feel it, just lie about it. Say this was terrible and show the respect that this case deserves.
Well, Chris, you shouldn't have to lie about this one. It's obvious. No. Terror attack, murder of National Guard soldiers. I think the issue is they're always trying to protect their narratives, okay? You know, even if they have to greatly insult, you know, our soldiers, the families. Think about all the friends and families this has impacted our whole nation here. It was a tragedy. But they don't want to admit, especially on the national stage, that, yeah, you know what? Our immigration policy, it is kind of jacked up. You know, I know this was an Afghani national, and they say he was vetted and he came in here. But it does dig into that. And it makes people wonder, well, who else is in the country here? And that's really what they're trying to do.
Yeah, no, you are so spot on right here. It's all about that narrative of immigration, you know, that narrative of, you know, we're not allowed to basically say anything negative about immigrants right now because that issue is so, I don't know, delicate for them. But at the end of the day, they would be much better off if they showed sympathy. They would be much better off if they showed disgust and horror and they said, you know what, the crime problem is an issue. It is something we have to deal with. And this is a horrific incident. And I am disgusted by it. Say that and people will respect you more.
But they would have to admit fault. And I said this at the beginning of the show, it's kind of coming full circle here. Their whole, everything they've built their platform on, it comes crashing down, which it all has up there in Minnesota too. Want to get to this real quick. Boston, okay? The Boston Globe has made an illegal alien from Brazil, Marcelo Gomes da Silva. He's the 2025 Bostonian of the Year. So back in May, da Silva, he was arrested by ICE enforcement on his way to a volleyball practice. So initially, I should say, he got into the country when he was 6. And, okay, he had a run-in with ICE, and now they're making him Man of the Year in Boston. So they're giving it to people who have an expired visa. Like, well, what's the achievement here? I'm not sure what that is.
Well, let me tell you, it's exactly what you said before, right? You already provided the answer to this. It is the narrative. Right. This is the flip side of that, right? So on one side, they want to diminish the problems, and on the other side, they want to highlight, you know, the benefits of immigrants. These people are amazing, that sort of thing. You know?
That's it. Continue the narrative. That's what they'll do. Chris Kohls, thanks for coming on.
Thanks, man.
All right, folks, going to be right back. Stick with us.
Closed captioning is brought to you by MagnaLife Pain Relieving Foot Cream to target neuropathy symptoms.
The stabbing, burning pain in your feet is real. Here's what real customers have to say about MagnaLife Pain Relieving Foot Cream, the only thing that works for my diabetic neuropathy.
Available in foot care and diabetic aisles.
As a neurologist, my patients are often concerned with age-related memory decline. I recommend Cunol Brain Health with 2 powerful, high-absorption ingredients clinically shown to improve memory, focus, attention, and more. Cunol, the brand I trust.
Tommy Copper's zip-up full back support shirt is redefining compression.
If you do this, or this, or sometimes even this, Tommy Copper's got this.
The ultimate muscle-supporting, pain-fighting compression shirt that zips on easily.
So that you can do all this. Thank you, Tommy Copper.
Fight back pain. Go to TommyCopper.com and save 40% site-wide today.
You need this. Trust me.
Your data is like a single domino. the moment it's stolen, it starts a chain reaction that puts the information that guards your assets at risk. 1 in 3 Americans have been a victim of identity theft. Are you willing to risk it?
When I saw zeros on that screen as my bank account balance, I went to immediate panic.
$21,000 just gone.
I opened my account and $30,000 is missing. Like $30,000. I have no idea what to do.
If your personal information is stolen, are you prepared to pick up the pieces alone? LifeLock is the leader in identity theft protection and restoration.
Once LifeLock got involved, everything changed.
With LifeLock, if your identity is stolen, they'll step in and fix it so you don't have to, guaranteed. Our highly trained U.S.-based restoration specialists contact institutions, dispute fraudulent charges, close compromised accounts, and even procure legal support far beyond the capabilities of your bank or credit card company.
LifeLock pursued this case further than I ever would have imagined.
If you call right now, you'll get LifeLock for just $9.99 a month for your first year. And as extra protection, all LifeLock memberships include the $1 Million Protection Package. Our members receive reimbursement for stolen funds and personal expenses, like lost wages, as well as coverage for lawyers and experts up to $3 million in total.
When the bank refused to reimburse my stolen money, the $1 Million Protection Package came through for me.
Our restoration guarantee and $1 Million Protection Package are included in all memberships with no additional fees.
I think it's natural to think that you can do this on your own. You can't. You need an expert in your corner.
Call 1-800-360-9220 and use promo code TV35 or go to lifelock.com/TV35 to join today.
John trusts Prevagen for his brain, and this is his story.
Hi, I'm John, and I'm from Dallas, Texas. I've been producing and directing for over 50 years. It's a very detailed thing, and the pressure's all on me. My boss told me about Prevagen, and I started taking it, and I noticed a change. My confidence level is stronger. I've been taking Prevagen for more than 11 years. It just works.
Prevagen has been the #1 selling brain supplement nationwide for over 10 years.
It's the Blue Compass RV annual Blue Tag clearance. Save over 40% on select new RVs during our largest sale of the year. Plus, every RV comes with a 1-year VIP membership to RV Complete, a $5,000 value. Visit us online or in store today.
Okay, finally tonight, have a great weekend, right? Christmas season. Be sure to check me out on my show, American Agenda, weekdays 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern Time, only here on Newsmax. Everybody, thank you so much for watching. I mean it. Infinity's next.